The war in Ukraine is not a reality TV show. After dinner, I usually scroll through my phone, check my email and messages, and read the news. Then I received a text message from my husband. "I'm fine," he tells me. My heart starts pounding furiously. What's wrong, you might ask? Isn't that a nice message? He's okay. Well, while I'm safely in Toronto with our daughter, he is in Kyiv, Ukraine. And right now, as I'm reading his message, this city is being actively attacked by Russian missiles. On Telegram, I see pictures of destroyed residential buildings in some districts of the capital, with cars on fire. I see firemen helping people get out of ruined apartments, and teams cleaning the rubble in the hopes of finding those who did not escape. I read on and learn that Odessa, Lviv, Kherson, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Pavlograd have also been hit by rocket fire. I watch a video of rescuers carrying out a body and hear voices say, "Watch out for her legs." They are holding a 9-year-old girl. These legs should have been running a long path for many more years, going to school, college, work, rushing to a date. But they will not be able to anymore. Her mother was also found under the rubble. Only her father survived. I flip to Facebook and scroll through my feed. There is a now familiar roll call post that say who's alive, who's dead, who's injured. Friends write about how they can't sleep anymore and go to work exhausted. One post reads, "Half an hour ago I was asleep in my bed, but now there is a hole instead of a wall in my house, and my sink is visible from the street. I can see the photos of the terrible destruction. The owners of the condos, like their neighbors, fortunately survived, but they are helplessly watching their old life burn down. What will happen next with them? This is an important question, and everyone will be looking for an answer. Relatives and friends of these people are already starting to collect financial aid, looking for temporary housing and donating to buy weapons for the Ukrainian army. Fatigue multiplied by anger encourages people to donate more, for example, for drones. No one is giving up. Ukrainians want only one thing: to help the attacker stop forever. I pause. Once again, I convince myself that I made the right decision to come to Canada and save my child from the war and its consequences. I'm crying with a sense of devastation, but I'm also happy that my family and friends are safe. The missile missed them for now. I write to my friend Olenka to see how she's doing. A mother of 6-year-old twins who lives in Kyiv, she begins each day monitoring the reports of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, eager for news about the situation on the battlefield. Before she takes the children to school, she texts to see if the Russians have launched warplanes with missiles. During an attack, there is a small basement to shelter in, but it only holds her immediate family. Her parents insist on staying upstairs in the house, hoping to be lucky. It's Russian roulette in more than one way. "How did you spend the night?" I asked my neighbor in Kyiv. "You know, the shelter is not closed, so we slept in the hall," she replies. Ukrainians have become familiar with the simple rule of 2 walls. In the event of shelling or explosions, you need to have at least 2 walls between you and the outside, because a missile can destroy the wall and debris will fly into the second wall. Dear listeners, look around and check your room. Would your walls save you? My colleague Alla, with whom I worked in radio, is now serving in the army back home. She told me she has a Spartan life, ready to go at all times. Her documents, a tourniquet, an energy bar, wet wipes, and folding toothbrush are always with her, just in case. Sometimes she must sleep where there are no walls at all, such as at the open-air training grounds or in a trench. Sleeping in a bathtub has become common for most Ukrainians today. My friend Roman saved himself this way when a Caliber cruise missile hit his yard, burning parked cars and smashing windows in neighboring condos. Ukrainians have a massive amount of rebuilding to do. So far, Russian troops have destroyed more than 170,000 buildings across the country, including residential high-rises, schools, hospitals, museums, libraries, and shops. Cities in the east of the country have been partially or completely burned and wiped off the map. Mariupol, Авдіївка, Бахмут, Рубіжне, Popasna, and many, many more. Vladislav, a resident of ruined Irpin, told me that more than 3,000 buildings were destroyed there in the first 23 days of the war, but that he and his neighbors have since returned to their residential complex. Unit owners contributed funds to rebuild the buildings, even though they know at any moment an enemy missile can destroy them all over again. But if that happens, we will rebuild them, he said. This is our home. We have nowhere else to go. We can restore everything, but we cannot bring back those who have been killed. According to the United Nations, at least 4,100 innocent civilian lives were lost in the first months of Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine alone. Over the last 2 years, the number of civilian victims has exceeded 10,000. There are approximate figures, as there is no access to statistics on deaths in the occupied territories. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that at least 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed. This number will likely increase, as it is not known how many of the 15,000 soldiers who have been reported missing are actually dead. The sound of a siren. Daily alarms have also become commonplace for Ukrainians. These sounds bring us back to reality. This is the war. It is impossible to ignore it, even in the most remote areas of the country. My friend's son, 7-year-old Miron, has had to hear it for nearly a third of his life. He has learned that when the siren sounds, he should not cry, but immediately get his backpack and go with the adults to the bomb shelter. There, everyone takes their now usual place. Someone monitors the news, while someone keeps the children occupied. Often people bring water, cookies, and napkins to their bomb shelters, and usually they will leave those supplies there, knowing they will be back, maybe even the same day. Closer to the front line, the situation is much worse. People there do not have enough food. They live without electricity and heating. Many go days without water, though at least in the winter there is a natural alternative: snow and icicles, which thirsty people have been forced to melt. It has all been very hard to get used to, but some Ukrainians don't want to leave for calmer areas. Most of them are older and feel it would be too difficult to begin a new life in a new place. But even going outside at all can be difficult. The first thing my friend Alexandra taught her 2 children was do not touch anything on the street, for fear those objects could be mines or explosives. Last October, a 14-year-old boy died while walking on the backyard of his home in the Sumy region, which is constantly being shelled by Russian mortars. And so it feels like death can come at any time. As Oksana from Kherson admits to me, when I had to go to pick up a parcel from volunteers, I stood for a long time and looked at the sky. I had a constant feeling that drones could be flying there and something could be dropped on my head. I feel in constant danger. My life has frozen. Ukrainians have also kept their faith in victory, with many making donations to the armed forces and volunteering for the cause. My sister Svetlana recalls that in the first days of the war, she was in shock and did not understand what to do. And so she decided to cook, not just for her family, but for hundreds of soldiers. She now fries up steaks and makes dumplings and soup for the military in large quantities. Now I am always active. I can stop and relax, she says. The war has sharpened our sense of time. People realize that the next shelling may be the last, but they want to live. They want to love. They want to wear beautiful dresses and go to a cafe for their friends. We have stopped putting off important things for later. We stopped planning for the year ahead, another friend Tanya tells me. We live as if tomorrow might not come. With the future seeming vague and ephemeral, many are choosing to do what feels important and to live in the here and now. They've learned to appreciate every minute of ghostly, peaceful calm. People are going to movies, concerts, and theaters. Of course, sirens often interrupt the performances, forcing people to the nearest bomb shelter. But when the alarm ends, many return to their seats and the show goes on. Ukrainians continue to plan important events such as weddings and refuse to postpone them. Families are still choosing to have children even if the enemy is shelling maternity hospitals. You might say that a person gets used to everything, and so it is. However, in the 10 years since Russia occupied Crimea and parts of Donetsk and Luhansk regions, Ukrainians have not gotten used to the death of countless children and adults, the torture of innocent civilians, the abuse of prisoners of war, point-blank execution for speaking Ukrainian, the burning of Ukrainian books, the lives of the Russian military who report on the destruction of a children's art club or a pizzeria as an important military facility. The abrupt end of some families' trees as young people die before having children. the abduction of Ukrainian children by Russians and their forced adoption in Russian families. Hitler and Stalin acted like this. Now Putin leads a country that has lost its morality and humanity. And now let me ask you a question. Would you have the strength to live like this? How long could you live like this? And on top of that, imagine what it would be like to feel that the world seems tired of you, to feel like nobody cares that you're scared, that your child is sitting in a cold basement for days, that your people are being killed ruthlessly. The war in Ukraine is not a reality TV show that we can turn off. It's a test by the Kremlin to see how much compassion you have. While Ukrainians have become familiar with terrible new norms, our deaths cannot become normal to you. At the same time, the West must realize that by providing Ukrainians with enough weapons, it will be protected. And Ukrainians' victory will bolster the entire democratic world.